Hi y'all, today I'm going to make gumbo. I've been asked by several friends to make this dish and I hope you enjoy it. The recipe can be found in this cookbook. It's called Mama's Country Cooking. I wrote this cookbook in 1984 as a tribute to my mom. I lost her to cancer. It has lots of recipes and stories of her. Hope you enjoy it. If you want to know a little bit about gumbo, it is a southern dish from South Louisiana. It's where my daddy was from, and I learned how to cook this dish when I was young, and it's been a tradition that we've carried forward, and I hope you enjoy it. Merry Christmas, y'all. Okay, so one thing I want to point out is while I'm cooking the chicken, I go ahead and season it a lot. I'll add more dried seasonings later. I've shown you the types of seasonings that I use, but the reason I do a whole chicken is because I will get a good chicken broth off of this, and the bone is really good. It makes the flavor so much better. You can actually do this with regular chicken breast if you want, but I would suggest if you're going to do regular chicken breast, buy some chicken stock that you can use. I like to cook it down like this because I make my own chicken stock. On the sausage I use a smoked pork and chicken sausage or a Cajun andouille sausage. I like to mix them because we don't have really good sausages up here in Utah since I've moved, but we do have it's a good flavored chicken pork sausage that makes the gumbo taste really good. So I usually mix that with an andouille that I can find and get the flavors from both. Okay, I've chopped my vegetables here, ready for the gumbo. This is onion and celery and bell pepper, and it's known as the Trinity in Louisiana. The three vegetables that work in a lot of the dishes. Now the way I'm cooking this today is I'm adding my vegetables to my chicken stock with my chicken. It's all going to cook together, all the flavors are going to blend. Later on, I'll pull the chicken out and debone it. It's a little messier because I've chopped the vegetables already and put them in, but this is the way my mama taught me how to do it. If you want to reserve your vegetables and add them to the roux when you're cooking the roux, you can certainly do that, and then it's easier to debone the chicken without getting all the onion and the Trinity mixture on there. My chicken is going to still simmer. I'm going to cook it down because I like to have it really tender so it falls off the bone. So I will check on it here in about 20 minutes. Okay, you can see the chicken is now starting to kind of pull apart from the bone. That means it's starting to cook really good. You want to get that flavor out of the bone into your stock. So I cook it down a little bit longer. When I make gumbo from scratch, it's kind of an all-day affair. I just let it cook and then I come and check on it. Now I'm going to show you this iron skillet. What we're going to make is the roux with 1 part oil and 1 part flour, and it's all-purpose flour. And what I do is I do 1 cup of each, and then I'm going to put it in this iron skillet. To tell you a little bit about this iron skillet, it was my mom's. She passed away in 1984, and I inherited this. She probably had it 30 years before me, and now I've had it another 30 years. I love this skillet. I've taken care of it. I can show you another time on how to care for your cast iron. But this thing, it's non-stick. It makes great grilled cheese. You can fry stuff in it. It's a great all-around skillet. If you need to get yourself a new one, then you can season it. You can go online. I'm sure they can tell you how to season them. Best way to season a new iron skillet is to cook bacon in it. And I never put soap in it unless something's really messy in it. But I use just a scrubber to scrub it out. And if something's stuck to it, I will kind of cook it out. You can stick it in an oven to re-season it if it starts to lose its non-stick surface. But like I said, this iron skillet, I can even fry eggs in it. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool to have in your kitchen. So now I'm going to show you how to make the roux. We're going to add 1 cup of oil. And now on this oil, I'm going to go ahead and heat it up. And I'm going to get it really hot before I add my flour. And then I'm going to start toasting the flour. So I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a second. Okay, my oil is starting to heat up. I'm going to add just a little drop to see. That lets me know that it's hot, it's ready. So I'm going to turn it down to a medium high. And I'm going to add my flour to it. This is how we do it. My mom actually used the hard cake shortening. I started using oil. I learned this method from a lady in New Orleans to get the oil hot, and then that way it cuts down your time on making your roux. Now you want to make sure you're going to stir it. You're going to get it all mixed in. You can use a whisk at this point if you want. I like a wooden spoon. I also have a recipe for making baked roux that you make in the oven, and it'll make a big batch so that you can use it. You can store it in a mason jar and then use it over time. My sister taught me how to make a dry roux, which is without the oil, and you can make that in the oven as well. And I'll show you how to make that at some point, or you can Google it, and there's some other guys out there that make it. The Tony's, you can get some roux already made, or you can order it at your Louisiana Cajun grocers to get it. Now I'm going to cook this down. It'll foam up a little bit, but then it'll quit foaming as it starts to cook. And the goal is to toast your flour without burning it. This is almost an art form, something that we're taught when we're very young in Louisiana. You're going to stir this and keep it off the bottom. Scrape your bottom so that it doesn't burn. And then you're going to start taking your time to cook it. And I'm going to turn my fire down to just above medium high because we don't want it to burn. We want it to toast. And what our goal is to see it come into a dark chocolate color. The way it looks right now would be a good base for a cream gravy if you wanted to make a white cream gravy for chicken. Okay, I'll be back because this will take a while. Okay, as you can see, it's starting to come together, very dark. I keep it off the bottom so that it doesn't burn. If you burn a roux, then you have to throw it out and start over because it will not taste good. But what the cooking does is it brings out the nuttiness of the flour and makes it absolutely delicious. And when you add this to stocks, you get a very hearty flavor that's out of this world. Now that is roux. That's how dark I like it. See, it's a rich dark chocolate. It is just beautiful. And it only took me about 10 minutes by heating the oil first. If you don't heat the oil first, it'll take you a little longer, but when you're first starting to make it, you want to make it as slow as possible so that you don't burn it. And it takes technique and experience to get it this dark, but it's something I've been doing all my life, so I know how to get it that dark without burning it, although I have had a lot of occasions where I burn it and had to throw it out. Anyway, so now we're going to let this cool down so that we can add it to our chicken stock, and I'll go debone the chicken. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about spices. I've added my spices here. They're dried. In country cooking, mostly you use dried spices because a lot of times it's winter cooking, and back in the day they didn't have fresh herbs and stuff available. Although if you have fresh parsley, it's nice to use fresh parsley, but I just use a little parsley flakes like that. Then I use some of these mixes. You can get these, or you can get the spices that are listed and add those to it. This is our ground filet. It's from the sassafras tree, and what this is, it's a ground spice that we usually add after the gumbo is done. And I use it sparingly because I prefer to add it to taste on my actual gumbo. I've had gumbo that was green because they added too much of this. This has a really good flavor. It's gumbo filet, not file. It's pronounced filet. Anyway, it's good. It's one of my favorites. So, and we're just going to add this. I've added the chicken. You can see I deboned it. I'll stir it around for you so you can see. I always leave one leg whole in there because it's just kind of tradition. Because somebody always gets a leg. And then you can see I have some bay leaves in there too. I'll probably pick those out right before serving. So I'm going to add my spices here. And then what I'll do is I've already added a little bit of spice, and that's kind of the rest. And then I'll do a little taste right before serving too, and make sure it's salty enough. I try not to add too much salt at first. And then over here, what I have here is my rice mixture. Now, I'm doing a big pot because I did 12 parts, or 6 cups of rice to 12 cups of water. And what I do is I usually rinse it, so I'm going to show you. I will pour this reserved water out into a measuring cup so that I know how much clean water to add back. But that helps get the extra starch off so that your rice flakes apart really nice when you cook it. Okay, I've partially rinsed my rice. It's in the pot. Now I have my stove set to high. I did a dash of salt in it. It's going to start to boil. As soon as it starts to boil, I'm going to turn it down to a medium-low to low and cover it, and then I'm going to cook it for 15 minutes, and then it should be done. I don't need a special rice cooker to do this. They just take up extra space. I always just have a good pot with a lid. I'm doing a little extra this time. Otherwise, I would have used a 4-quart pot, but I'm using a 6-quart because I'm making 6 cups of rice, which will yield me 12 cups when it's done. Okay, it's been exactly 15 minutes. I'm going to show you what we have. This is my rice. See how perfect that is? Very simple. I didn't stir it or anything. I brought my water to a boil, made sure it was a rolling boil about 1 minute, and then I turned it down to medium-low and then covered it with a lid, set my timer for 15 minutes, and there you have your rice. So now we're going to add it to our bowl, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I have my scoop of rice in the bowl, so now I'm going to put some gumbo on it. Show you how good that looks. I like a little bit of the stock around it, and there you have gumbo, people. A little bit of gumbo filet on top of that, and then I'll top it with a little bit of tabasco to taste, and it is ready to go.